Hi, Nick Vandekar here, selling the main line with Long and Foster Real Estate in Devon, PA. And I am here today with Shawn DeAngelo from Prosperity Home Mortgage. And I invited Shawn to come on today because I wrote a blog post last week about the value of your pre-approval. And I wanted Shawn to come on and discuss that because Prosperity Home Mortgage have a really nice product where you can basically be fully approved, barring the appraisal. So, Shawn, hand it over to you.
Thanks, Nick. Yes. So obtaining a mortgage preliminary approval or pre-approval is always the best place to begin when buying a home. It's honestly one of the first things you should do. Given the market that we're in, it being a seller's market, you sometimes have to stand out, right? So because of that, we've really been pushing this year what we call our Buyer's Advantage program, or Prosperity's Buyer's Advantage might be the technical way to put it. So by electing to participate in this, you can get much of the home financing process out of the way and obtain a commitment letter before you even begin searching for a home. And what a commitment letter is essentially the underwriter has looked at the file. A commitment letter normally comes halfway through. It's almost like a checkpoint for both the buyer and the seller to let everybody know that we're really going to get final approval. So this means when it's time to make an offer, you have that commitment letter and the pre-approval to submit to the sellers. The idea meaning, or the philosophy maybe behind it, is that your offer will look stronger and stand out. Say if you're the 1 out of the 10 offers on this property and you have a commitment letter, they don't, price is about the same. Theoretically, you should have a much better shot of having your offer get accepted. So as far as how it works, right? How does it work? You may be asking. So up front, the buyer will need to complete an application and submit their initial documents. There's a credit pull that's a part of that application. The file is then set up for whatever the buyer is already looking at. Whatever their price point is, we're going to set that commitment letter up to be at that price point, what their property taxes are for that area. Then we're submitting the file as a TBD, to be determined, to the underwriter, just like a normal file. So same process, right? Application, credit pull, initial documents submitted. Normally, if it was a normal offer being accepted, we would then submit a purchase agreement and then send it through processing and the underwriting queue. It's the same process, except now we don't have the street address, right? So we're basically saying it's going to be determined. So it goes up to the underwriter, they review it, they list their conditions on the commitment letter. And remember, the commitment letter, the reason they call it that, it's a commitment from Prosperity Home Mortgage to give your buyer final approval if they clear these conditions. So that's essentially telling the seller, hey, this underwriter's already looked at this file. And back to what Nick was saying, if that offer is accepted, we basically just throw in the property address. We now have the 6 bits of information for a true application, and we've already completed half the process. So all that's left at that point is third-party stuff like appraisal, title, etc. So as far as benefits, to kind of finish up here, there's no extra cost to it, so it's complimentary. We do ask that we get about a week or so just to get it up to the underwriter for processing and have it come back down. Again, standing out, maybe calling it a distinguished offer because your commitment letter will hopefully put your offer over the top. A little bit smoother of a transaction because we already have most of the file done at that point. It helps with last minute issues too. If you can get an underwriter to look at a file, if there is going to be any red flags that we may have missed, the underwriter is going to catch it. So that a lot of the speed bumps, so to speak, aren't necessarily there. We can kind of see them a bit earlier. And flexibility on closing date. Again, if we're already halfway through the process, we're not saying, okay, it's going to be a 60-day or a 45-day close. You could honestly, and then granted, there is some aspects of COVID that come into this as far as what type of loan it is, but standard conventional loan, instead of closing in say 30 to 45, you might be able to do it under a month. You might be able to do it in 3 weeks, really depending on how quickly that appraisal comes back. So in my opinion, I do think it does help on offers, but there is a little bit of work up front that we need to do. Once it's done, it does help cut down on time on the back end, and it does make a stronger offer. So it can be really helpful.
And do you see any negatives for doing this?
The one
Especially
negative,
with our market where it's so hard to actually find homes right now, how long do these mortgage commitments last?
so mortgage commitments are going to reflect whatever documents we have. So if they're, and again, this goes, I'd say the one negative so far isn't really a negative, it's just being prepared, right? So if they have all their documents up front, bank statements, pay stubs, W-2s, tax returns, we're pulling credit then as well. So the commitment letter lasts as long as the documents we have at that moment, right? So the next time they would have to reset it or re-up the commitment letter, the shortest amount of time, if they give us up-to-date bank statements and pay stubs, is around 30 to 60 days. Normally it's pay stubs. So then essentially all you're doing at that point is submitting more pay stubs, and then we just extend the expiration date. Okay. So you're not then resubmitting it every time. You're updating documents, and we just update the expiration.
Okay, that sounds perfect. How many of these do you find percentage-wise that people do?
Honestly, not as many that should. There seems to be a rush in this market where a house comes on the market, and again, it goes back to like the old Boy Scout motto, be prepared. But if a house comes on the market on a Friday and they by the end of that weekend, they have so many offers that the seller's ready to make a decision, so they literally sell the house within a couple of days. That is a lot of what's happening. A lot of cash buyers are swooping in. So I would say the big negative and the thing that stops people from really following through with the program is wanting to get pre-approved right before they're about to make the offer, instead of setting themselves up a couple weeks in advance, figuring out what the price point is, setting the commitment letter there. So then as those houses are coming on the market, you already have it ready to go. That's the best way to do it. But there is a level of, I gotta go because these houses are going off the market so fast. So if we have an extra week or two, that's really the best fit for it. But oftentimes that's just not the case. I would say out of pre-approvals, if I was going to throw a percentage on it of last year, I would say 10%, but it should easily be 40 or 50%.
Right.
But
right.
I know
I'm telling all my buyers, get the full commitment, and I'm saying it week after week, and they're not taking those steps. Yep. And that's really why I wrote this post initially was, that pre-approval isn't worth what you think it's worth anymore. And you need to be making yourself stand out from the other buyers. So,
and it goes into overall preparedness as well, right? Even if we weren't going to do buyer's advantage, in my world, in the mortgage pre-qualification and execution of mortgage loans, if we have a buyer that doesn't have to rush into it and we have time to prepare, every day, every week of extra time we get allows us to make their file stronger. Whether it's saving money, whether it's bringing up your income average, it could be paying off debt to lower your monthly debts, which increases your buying power. I mean, almost every file that comes through could be better. It's very rare that you see a file come through with, 800 plus credit score. They have open lines of credit, but they're all paid to zero, so there's no monthlies. Their other mortgages are paid off. They don't have to sell their home before buying the other. It's very rare to have that. And I always go sports analogies here, that slam dunk of a file where I'm not really doing anything. That's right. So rare. It does not really happen. There's always room for improvement. And I honestly believe buyer's advantage almost forces them into a mindset of, maybe I should slow down. Maybe I should slow down a little bit and not just be throwing out all these offers with all the other pre-approvals just because I feel like I have to be the first one there.
Right.
Instead of taking the extra 2 weeks and saying, let me make my file stronger so that when they do come up, I can still be first, just take those 2 weeks and then cycle the new properties as they come on after that 2 weeks and then be the first one. Then it looks even better, right? Then you're the first one and it has the commitment letter.
Yep.
I completely agree, though. I mean, there's a lot of aspects of pre-approval, and I know we were speaking a little bit off this Zoom call about the pre-qualification letter as well, and that's going the opposite direction of what we're both trying to say here. Is
Right.
they're almost trying to rush it even more, because the pre-qual letter, no one's really reviewing that, right? They're answering a couple of questions. There's an assumption of income. There's an assumption of debt. And then the pre-qualification letter is out there. What are we doing? Like, who's even accepting that pre-qualification letter? I mean, if you have a house, you have a listing, and you have, 5 offers, and you have, 4 of them are pre-approvals, and one's a pre-qualification letter, I can't imagine you're even looking at the pre-qual letter, right?
Right.
So
right.
I think that plays into what we're saying here. It's like a little bit of extra time to make yourself look better on paper. It's either that, or you're basically just increasing sales price to make up for the fact that you're along with all the other pre-approvals, or you're somehow coming up with enough cash. And then, I mean, not many people can really do that, right?
Right. Well, thank you for your time. How do people get hold of you?
Real simple. So it's Shawn DeAngelo, ShawnDeangelo. My email address is Shawn D, like my last name. So SHAND @phmloans.com, or just my cell phone, 484-297-2192.
Okay, sounds great. I'll put that in the notes. And thank you for your time, Shawn.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nick. This was great. I appreciate it.
Okay, bye.